It's little wonder then that the human condition has been described so vehemently as the personal unspeakable and as the black box inside of humans they can't go near. Personal Conversations, WTM Records, February 1995. And why it is so very rare to find a completely honest description of adolescents going through the excruciating process of resignation, of resigning themselves to having to block out the seemingly inexplicable question of their worth and meaning, and live from that time on in denial of the unbearable issue of the human condition. Having already been through this terrible process of resignation, most adults simply couldn't allow themselves to recall, recognise, and thus empathise with what adolescents were experiencing. They were, as Craig complained, rendered clueless to the situation. And so our young have been alone with their pain, unable to share it with those closest or the world at large. All of which makes the following account of a teenager in the midst of resignation by the American Pulitzer Prize-winning child psychiatrist Robert Coles incredibly special. And this is his quote: "I tell of the loneliness many young people feel. It's a loneliness that has to do with a self-imposed judgment of sorts. I remember a young man of 15 who engaged in light banter only to shut down, shake his head, refuse to talk at all when his own life and troubles became the subject at hand. He had stopped going to school. He sat in his room for hours listening to rock music. The door closed. I asked him about his head-shaking behaviour. I wondered whom he was thereby addressing. He replied, 'No one.' I hesitated, gulped a bit as I took a chance. 'Not yourself?' He looked right at me now in a sustained stare for the first time. 'Why do you say that?' he asked. I decided not to answer the question in the manner that I was trained. Basically trained in avoiding what the human condition really is. Was in brackets there. Instead, with some unease, I heard myself saying this: 'I've been there. I remember being there. Remember when I felt I couldn't say a word to anyone.' The young man kept staring at me, didn't speak. When he took out his handkerchief and wiped his eyes, I realised they had begun to fill." In brackets, The Moral Intelligence of Children, 1996, page 143 to 144 of 218. The boy was in tears because Coles had reached him with some recognition and appreciation of what he was wrestling with. Coles had shown some honesty about what the boy could see and was struggling with, namely the horror of the utter hypocrisy of human behaviour, including his own. Paragraph 110. The words Coles used in his admission that he too had once grappled with the issue of the human condition, of "I've been there," are exactly those used by one of Australia's greatest poets, Henry Lawson, in his extraordinarily honest poem about the unbearable depression that results from trying to confront the question of why human behaviour is so at odds with the cooperative loving, or to use religious terms, godly ideals of life. In his 1897 poem, The Voice from Over Yonder, Lawson wrote, "Say it, think it, if you dare. Have you ever thought or wondered why the man and God were sundered, torn apart? Do you think the Maker blundered?" And the voice in mocking accents answered only, "I've been there." The unsaid words in the final phrase, "I've been there," being, "and I'm certainly not going there again," with the "there" and the "over yonder" of the title referring to the state of deepest, darkest depression. That takes me to the end of paragraph 110. And you've got a photograph, a picture here, and I'll just read the caption down the bottom. It says, "Goya's The Sleep of Reason brings forth monsters, 1796 to 97.